introductory video on the procedure for the Lactase Lab. This is Chantal Lacroix. She is a lab technician in the biology department at Keene State College. Chantal is going to begin by showing how to use the spectrophotometer.
First, we're going to start off by setting the wavelength on the spec. To do that, you hit set, and we're going to set it to 420 because that's the wavelength for a yellow substance. And then we're going to hit measure blank to make it 0. Next, we are going to blank it with our blank solution. That's just the phosphate buffer. We're going to set it forward, the triangle, which you can see in the front here, into the front of the spec, like so. So you always want the triangle facing the front. That way you're consistent between each sample. And then you're going to close it. And then you're going to hit set blank, or measure blank, over here, which will bring the absorbance down to 0. And then to measure our solution, which is yellow, with the triangle again facing forward, we're going to close it, and then we'll know what our absorbance is.
Chantal will demonstrate how to set up an actual experiment. She has labeled the container holding the cuvettes to reflect the substrate concentration within each cuvette. Now she will add 1 ml of 0.1 molar phosphate buffer to each of those cuvettes using the P1000 micropipetter. She has the pipetter set to 1000 microliters. She loads a tip, a plastic sterile tip, onto the pipetter, pressing firmly to seat it on the pipette. She pushes the pipette down to the first stop, inserts it below the meniscus of the liquid, slowly draws up, and then transfers and expels the solution by pushing all the way through to the second stop. She then ditches that tip using the eject button and moves on to the next tube. Now that Chantal has added the phosphate buffer to each of the cuvettes, she moves on to add 125 microliters of the substrate, which is ONPG, to each cuvette. She uses the P200 to do that addition. Sets it to 125 microliters, loads the tip. These are yellow tips, you'll note. Each pipetter has its own tip. And then the substrate ONPG is in small 1.5 ml Eppendorf tubes that are labeled to show which substrate to use for which tube. She chooses the appropriate tube, draws up the solution, and dispels it into the appropriate matching cuvette. Now at this point in the protocol, you work one cuvette at a time, and you begin a reaction by adding the enzyme lactase. It will be in a labeled tube. Chantal is holding the lactase tube now in her left hand. She will add 125 microliters of lactase enzyme into the appropriate cuvette. As soon as she makes that addition, she will mix the reaction reagents together using a piece of parafilm to cap the top, and inverting to mix. Now she immediately places the reaction, or the cuvette, into the spectrophotometer, again taking care to ensure that the triangle is facing forward. At this point, she immediately begins timing the reaction. She will wait 60 seconds, and at the 60-second or 1-minute mark exactly, she will read the absorbance of the solution, and she will record that number in the data sheet provided with the lab handout. Chantal completes this experiment, she will move on and use the same procedure again to test the effects of temperature and pH on the activity of the enzyme lactase.